What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be taking a look at the very first time that Worlds Collide has gone and won a Vault Tour. There was an Archon Vault Tour at PAX, that's the one where you take your best deck, and it was won by a Worlds Collide deck. And this probably won't shock you, right, given that it's a Vault Tour winning deck. It's a really good deck. Now, one of the things I find very, very interesting here is that even though it's a Worlds Collide deck, and Worlds Collide introduced us to two new houses, this deck doesn't feature either of the new houses. This deck only features existing houses we've had for a while, but what it does with them are rather good indeed. Now, I want to start off with my favourite combo in the deck, because I told you that someone was going to have a deck that did this. It is Eddie, or E-D-A-I, Eddie 4x4. It's Eddie, right? And what Eddie does is when you play it, you archive a card, and your opponent's keys cost +1 amber for each card in your archives. Okay, so if you can build a big archive of cards, your opponent essentially has to get rid of Eddie, or else they're paying a large amount of money, by which I mean amber, to be able to forge a key. And the great news here is we've actually got some really good archiving, including 2 copies of Library of the Damned. Now, this is archiving in Dis, and archiving we generally expect to see in logos, so having 2 copies of Library of the Damned is amazing, because it means that you can be archiving essentially 2 cards per turn. And if your opponent doesn't have any artifact control to get rid of Library of the Damned, and they don't get rid of Eddie, it takes them a very, very long time to actually get to forge a key. Now, there is some other archiving we see here, and this is in logos. We got Tortor Vapors, and lets you draw 2 cards and then archive a card. We've got Jargoggle, that when you play it, you put a card from your hand face down under Jargoggle, and if it is your turn, you play the card under him when he's destroyed, otherwise you archive the card. And we've got Wormhole Technician. When you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a logos card, you play it, otherwise you archive it. So we've actually got a pretty nice amount of archiving here to go with Eddie stopping you forge a key if there's too much archiving. But really, this is a deck about amber control. It's not a huge rush deck. One of the things that makes me super weirded out by this deck is that there are 6 bonus amber on the cards. Of the 36 card deck, 6 of the cards actually have bonus amber on them, and 30 of them don't. This is not a deck that is rushing ahead for amber. It's playing the amber control game. And it's got a good amber control game. We've got Too Much to Protect. Now, we know that Too Much to Protect is one of the best cards in the game for this. You steal all but 6 of your opponent's amber. That's pretty ridiculous. But we also see a copy of Javinda, 2 in fact. When you reap, you deal 1 damage to a creature, and if it destroys that creature, you steal yourself an amber. So that's going to be very nice, having 2 of those, getting rid of some of your amber. That sounds good to me. But then again, we've also got 2 copies of Ronnie Wristlocks, which, I'm going to be honest with you, Ronnie Wristlocks is one of the best amber control cards we've probably got. When you play it, you steal an amber, but if your opponent's got 7 or more, you steal 2. So 2 Ronnie plus 2 Javinda, that sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. And we've also got a copy of Umbra here. When you fight, you steal an amber. Plus, you also do have Skirmish, so if you start the fight, you are guaranteed to survive it. We've got Trust No One. New card, when you play it, you steal an amber. If there are no friendly creatures in play, you instead steal 1 amber for each house represented among enemy creatures. So if you're lucky here, you can actually be stealing 3 amber in one go here. That's pretty gosh darn fun. And we've then got a copy of Mug. Mug gives you an amber bonus, one of the very few, and lets you move an amber from a creature to your pool. So here, if your opponent has either captured an amber or exalted, 2 ways that they would get amber on themselves, you can then move that amber from your opponent's creature to your pool. Or indeed, if you capture amber, you can move it from your creature to your pool. Moving into logos, I've got a copy of Cutthroat Research. If your opponent's got 8 or more amber, you steal 2. It's not my favourite one because it never takes your opponent off of check, unless they've got a really high check. But it's still nice to have a little bit of amber control in logos, other than, of course, Eddie. And moving over into Dis, we've got Snaglet. And it's got an action whereby you choose a house, and if your opponent chooses that house as their active house next turn, you get to steal 2 amber. Now, it's up to your opponent. They can choose a different house so you don't steal the amber, but that is pretty much the definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face. Sure, your opponent doesn't get the amber, but also you don't get to choose the house that you want. That's not a particularly good thing here. We've got a copy of Rot Grub. Rot Grub, when you play it, your opponent loses an amber. When you reap, you archive Rot Grub. So really, you want to be trying to play this as often as you can. Just continually make your opponent lose some amber. That sounds like an awful lot of fun. But we also here have 2 copies of Infernus. And Infernus is a really good card. When you play it, you purge up to 2 cards from a discard pile, yours or your opponent's. Your opponent loses amber equal to the total amber bonus of the purged cards. Now, obviously, it's not going to do much to purge your cards, because firstly, you don't want to purge your cards often. Secondly, you don't have much amber bonus at all on your cards. It is really low. But if you're against one of these Amber Rush decks playing stuff like Dust Pixie, you can absolutely clean up, purge 2 of them, your opponent loses 4 amber. And that really is the highlight of the deck here. It is a deck that goes, ha ha ha, you can't forge. And it really is pretty full on in that regard. But there's lots of other stuff to like. So if we start in Dis, we've got a copy of Hysteria. You return each creature to its owner's hand. Gee whiz, wouldn't it be fun if you were able to play Hysteria right before you dropped, I don't know, Trust No One? It's going to be difficult if I'm honest with you, they're in different houses, but still. Not finished with you, lets you shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. Really, really good for trying to reuse Infernus, because Infernus is nuts good. We've got a copy of Buzzle, 3 power, 0 armor creature with Skirmish. When you fight, you take no damage in return if you start the fight. And when you play or fight, you may purge one of Buzzle's neighbours. And if you do, you ready Buzzle. Having to purge your own cards is less than ideal, but being able to ready him and use him out of turn sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. We've got Harbinger of Doom. When it's destroyed, you destroy each creature. I've made no secret of the fact that this is one of my favourite cards in the set. It's like a lovely little self-destruct button that you can use, throw it against a creature that you know will destroy it, and then every creature on the board goes down. Of course, your opponent can destroy it, and then every creature on the board goes down. You have been warned. And then we've got some house control in the form of 2 copies of Snag. Snag, essentially, when you fight, assuming you survive the fight, your opponent must choose a house of the creature Snag fights as their active house on their next turn. So essentially, you fight a creature and you can choose your opponent's active house next turn for them. That sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. Moving into logos, we've got Thorium Plasmate. You get to move an enemy creature anywhere on its controller's battle line and deal 2 damage to that creature for each of its neighbours that shares a house with it. So in theory here, what you want to do is just move a creature next to 2 creatures of the same house, and then it takes 4 damage. That could be fun. Hologramophone's got an action that just wards a creature. This one's really, really nice. Because warding, you put a ward counter on a creature, and the next time it would be damaged, destroyed, or otherwise removed from play, you instead remove the ward counter. It means you can guarantee to protect one of your creatures in play. Like, ooh, I don't know, maybe Eddie? Being able to ward Eddie, and you cannot stack them, unfortunately, it's 1 at a time. If they've got a ward counter, you can't give them another one. But being able to just ward it every turn is going to keep it out a little bit longer. 2 copies of Igor, a fairly weak creature, but when you play it, it lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand and discard the other 2. It's really, really nice for, well, just giving yourself a bit of consistency. Drawing into those cards that you need a little bit earlier. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, that is a very good thing indeed. 1 copy of Group Think Tank, a 4-power 3-armor creature, with an action that deals 4 damage to each creature, that is yours and your opponent's, that shares a house with at least one of its neighbours. You can prepare for this far better than your opponent. You can make sure you arrange your creatures so they're not taking the damage. We've got 1 copy of Quant. You may play 1 non-logos action this turn when you reap. It's just nice for using a card out of turn. Really is as simple as that. And 1 copy of Titan Guardian, a 5-power 1-armor creature, and if it is destroyed and it's not on a flank, you draw 2 cards. And Taunt should stop your opponent taking out its neighbours to put it onto a flank. Sounds like fun. Moving into Shadows, we've got Kymor Eclipse. When you play it, you shuffle each flank creature into its owner's deck. And this is one where you really want to be trying to reuse Infernus as often as you possibly can. Or Ronnie Risklocks as often as you possibly can. You've got some brilliant coming into play abilities here, and you can use them with Kymor Eclipse. It's pretty gosh darned awesome. And we've got a copy of Bad Penny. This is one of those decks where Bad Penny becomes absolutely brilliant. Because remember how I said that Javinda, when you reap, you deal 1 damage to a creature. If it destroys them, you steal an amber. Yeah, that's where Bad Penny comes in. And if you've got 2 Javinda down, you play Bad Penny, destroy it with Javinda. Your opponent loses an amber. Play it back down, destroy it with the other Javinda. Your opponent loses an amber. And then if your opponent doesn't destroy Bad Penny, next turn you reap to gain an amber, and then destroy it twice to steal an amber. Bearing in mind, Javinda is a reap skill, so even though you're making your opponent lose an amber, you're also gaining 1. We've got 1 copy of Whisper. It's got an action. You lose an amber, but if you do, you destroy a creature. That sounds pretty good to me. I'm totally alright with that. And 1 copy of Snack Lifter, which is really important as artifact control. Take control of an enemy artifact while under your control. If it does not belong to one of your 3 houses, it is considered to be of the house Shadows. So if your opponent's sitting there with something like an Iron Obelisk, for instance, just trying to make your keys cost a whole bunch more, you can take control of Iron Obelisk, and your opponent isn't increasing the cost of your keys. Make no mistake about it, this is a very, very good deck. It has got phenomenal amber control, and although it's not great at rushing, I don't think it really needs to be great at rushing, because you've got phenomenal amber control. Worlds Collide has already gone and won a Vault Tour, and it ain't been out that long, so whereas Age of Ascension took a very long time to get up to Vault Tour winning status, yeah, it's alright, ladies and gentlemen. Worlds Collide is here an awful lot faster. And I'd like to know what you think about Worlds Collide generally, and this deck specifically. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Keyforge and a whole bunch of other good games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get weekly bonus podcasts and all that good stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.